You're watching Mobile World Live's MWC Preview Themed Week. I'm delighted to be joined by Michael Clegg from Supermicro. Michael, thanks for joining us.
Justin. Very pleased to meet you again. Really looking forward to today's session. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Now, of course, one of the biggest talking points at this year's show will undoubtedly be Open RAN. And we are starting to see some real progress in the market. We've got network deployments happening around the world. But Open RAN, well, it does seem to come in different flavors, Michael. Can you give us a short overview of your take on what Open RAN means?
Yes, I can. I think probably the biggest confusion between Open RAN is there's really two sort of axes that people are looking at, dimensions. The one is disaggregated hardware and software. And the idea behind that is that you can virtualize the software that performs the Open RAN, and you can run that on standardized hardware. And that is one track. And that's often when we write open, the word RAN tends to come from that and came out of the telecom infrastructure project initiative that Facebook started. The second one, which is a little more industry direction that comes out of the O-RAN Alliance. And what the O-RAN Alliance wants to do is create standardized interfaces between the concentrator unit, which sits at the edge of the network, the distribution unit, which performs the layer 1 processing, and the radio unit. So the idea behind this is that you could use, company A's radio with company B's DU, with company C's concentrator unit. And that is the sort of separate layer, and that's often called Open RAN, but that is driven by the O-RAN Alliance, which is an operator-led standards body initiative. Now you get 4 quadrants out of this, and you can do all combinations. So you can have a proprietary RAN implementation that runs on disaggregated hardware and software, and you can have a open RAN implication that runs on proprietary hardware. So you can do either of those two, or you can have a completely open implementation with standardized interfaces, but not running on commercially available hardware. So for us, Supermicro in particular, we are most interested in the disaggregated hardware and software, because we want to go after that standardized server model. And it's really the standardized server model that ties back into the 5G cloud native architecture. So when you put those two together, you really get the benefits of 5G Open RAN.
And with that in mind, Michael, how would you describe the state of the Open RAN market today?
It's happening very quickly now. There was a lot of skepticism, I would say, a different degree of buy-in as to whether people would really adopt Open RAN. Was it providing the benefits? And now we really see that probably there's an industry-wide adoption to different levels. Ericsson, who has the most proprietary equipment, was probably the last one to come in, but they've been fairly open now that they are going to do Open RAN. Open RAN won't be the optimum solution in every single case. So it's not that it's going to be 100% the world is going to move to Open RAN. And I think once people have started to recognize that as well, the adoption gets a little easier, because it really becomes about when is this the optimal solution, when is the best place to go ahead and use it. Now, we've really seen 2 pioneers in the Open RAN space. The one really happened with 4G networks, particularly in rural areas. In the older networks, a lot of the voice still runs over a TDM 2G network. So you end up having to run these 3 networks, a 2G, 3G, 4G network, and each one has its own proprietary equipment. That gets very expensive, particularly where your population density is not that high, your user density is not that high. So we saw Open RAN really being adopted by the 4G industry in sort of rural markets, where the processing power, you could argue, wasn't too complicated, but it validated the systemic principle. It validated the whole idea, the concept. Translating that into 5G networks, again, we've really seen the early adoption happen again in these more rural markets, but also by the 2 greenfield operators, notably Rakuten and Dish. Now, for them, it's easier to adopt a new technology because they have no legacy. They don't have to worry about backwards compatibility, interoperability between the two. So unsurprising, they've gone ahead the fastest. And now we're starting to see it go mainstream, and you hear more and more announcements daily.
Yeah, you highlighted 2 operators in particular with regards to 5G there, Michael. And when we think of new technology, we do often think of advanced markets like the US and Asia, as you've just done so. But the fact is that half the world's population remains offline. So Do you think Open RAN can actually help improve global connectivity so that we can bridge the digital divide that is still quite prevalent?
Yes, I do. And we've definitely seen this already. Once you softwareize everything, it becomes a lot easier to distribute. You're now running on standardized hardware, which is available in many more markets. And we'll see some recent announcements. Another session we do with Mobile World Live from Parallel Wireless and Etisalat, who have, for example, deployed it in Afghanistan. So we're seeing some quite remote areas that are adopting, and they've been able to adopt it through an Open RAN model.
So I have to ask, what is Supermicro's involvement in Open RAN, Michael?
Well, we've been involved very early, right from the beginning. The inception of running the software on this disaggregated hardware, Intel was really, in a way, the creator and pioneer of this. We worked very closely with them from the beginning. Many of the early reference designs have been built on Supermicro hardware, and we've continued to expand that. We engaged with all the main industry players, the independent software vendors, as well as in a number of operator networks. So for us, this 5G RAN is another edge network application, and it fits beautifully for us with standardized server technology.
Well, Open RAN is undoubtedly one of the hottest topics in the industry right now. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts.